The following pictures show how a flat felt garage roof can be replaced by a pitched tiled roof. This picture shows the original garage roof This picture shows the completed garage roof some 4 months later. In January 2012 I concluded that the flat felted garage roof was past its sell-by date and it was necessary to take some action. I invited a number of the local roofing people and builders in to give me prices. These prices range from £5,500 to £8,500 for ripping off the old roof and building it into a pitched tiled roof. I took a number of measurements of the existing roof and found that the garage was offset from the main bungalow building by 450 millimeters and that the slope on the rear roof was 6 degrees difference to the slope on the front roof. The easiest solution was to build a truss in situ against the main roof, screw it and plate it together using the dragon tooth plates, and then be able to remove it and build from that template all the other 9 trusses. The master truss was taken down from the garage and mounted on a number of legs so that it was at a convenient height for working with. Each additional piece of wood was then laid on top of the master and screwed together. Each section of the truss was cut to size and the correct angle, ready for assembly on the jig. It was a simple matter of laying each piece of wood over the top of the master template, ensuring that they were all in the correct place, drilling and screwing them in position. Within a couple of days all the wood had been cut to size, screwed together and the trusses stacked ready for use. The new trusses would sit on the front and rear walls and also on an 8-inch RSJ which goes from side to side of the main garage. The trusses were not heavy, although I had made them out of wood which was 50% larger in section than that recommended by truss manufacturers. It was a simple matter of leaning them against a ladder and pulling them onto the roof. I have to add that my wife did a lot of pushing and I did a lot of pulling. The first truss was dropped into place against the main bungalow wall and, as you can see, sits on the wall at this end. Once this first truss had been correctly positioned, it was screwed and raw plugged to the wall using 100mm stainless steel screws. Second truss in position, we're ready to remove another section of the old roof. The trusses quickly dropped into position, were spaced and screwed to the cross members. Within a matter of 2 to 3 days the old roof was being ripped off and the new trusses of the new roof were being assembled into place. Another view of the roof with 4 trusses in place and another 3 to be laid down. 7 trusses in place, and we're really starting to cook on gas at this point. There was no time to stand and stare, as the clouds were gathering and the weather forecast was not good. We now had a garage with only plasterboard for the ceiling and open trusses above it. It was starting to look very good, but there was no time to stand and admire the work. Some of my neighbours said I was building a ship, and I said it was an ark. In the middle of May, the British weather took over and the rain clouds lashed water down onto the roof. I was lucky that I was able to get the membrane on and tack down before any serious amount of water had got onto the insulation. Working sometimes in the rain and against the clock, it was necessary to get the tiling laths on and screwed in place to hold the membrane to stop the wind from ripping that off. The end of May and the first weekend in June was the Queen's Golden Jubilee, so it was appropriate to raise a mast and some flags, not only to celebrate the Jubilee but to also celebrate the work that had gone on so far, for which I was quite pleased. I could now start tiling. The first row of tiles was put on, and then a second one was simply laid on the top, and a third on top of that. They all interlocked and are held in place by their own weight. The roofing laths were accurately screwed into position, and onto those the tiles hooked, and that's simply all that holds them there. It's half done. I have to admit I was quite pleased with the results so far. There was a short period that weekend when the sun actually came out and we saw a little bit of blue sky. Another view from the drive of the halfway stage. After nearly 2 weeks of torrential rain, when we could never get anywhere near the roof to do any work, we were able to get back on, lift on the last 4 trusses and move along to the final section. This was not the easiest part, because the old roof, which we'd used to stand on while building most of the other part of the roof, had been removed, and all we had to stand on were the rafters and the RSJ in the middle, crisscrossed by a few planks, which was a bit precarious to say the least. Another view of the last 3 trusses in place. We now had a solid roof, the full width of the garage. We now had to focus our mind on the eaves and the overhang. Some of the chipboard from the original roof was recovered and cleaned up and used as flooring for the inside of the new roof. The overhang eaves were added, and we now had about another 10 tiles to fit before the complete roof had been tiled over. I always seemed to find that I was short of at least 1 or 2 pieces of wood, and it amused our local wood yard, JK Timber in Rugby. I turned up in a Mercedes and hung 3-metre sections of the of wood on the side of the car. The overhang of the eaves had been completed. It now required the membrane to be tidied up so that the fascia boards could be added. It was time to start laying the ridge tiles along the top of the roof. A few buckets of cement and a little bit of time and patience added the ridge tiles to the roof and cemented them down. The roof was completed. Hallelujah! I suddenly realised we ought to have a topping out ceremony. So I sat on the top of the bungalow roof and had a can of beer while my wife celebrated with a gin and tonic. Not bad for a retired 70-year-old electromechanical engineer. I use Swish Products white UPVC sheeting for the gutters, fascia boards and eaves. This shows the nylon rope attached to the Swish UPVC sheeting. The rope was used to pull it up into position. Sliding the sheeting underneath cross members, it was possible to pull it up into position and then simply screw it against the underside of the trusses. The first piece of the underside of the eaves was in place. You would note the membrane to keep the weather off the inside of the roof. A hole was cut in the tiles and the flue pipe adjusted to the correct length, and then lead flashing was used to make it watertight. Here we see the eaves at the front of the new garage roof, all Swish UPVC material. The PVC sheeting went together very quickly and very easily. All the joints were then sealed with a mastic gun. I now had to brick up the end wall. I started with my platform and quickly found that it was not high enough. Standing on top of a box on top of the platform was not the most safe thing to do. The local gem hire tool hire company quickly delivered a platform the next day, and I was able to proceed with the bricklaying. It's not very often you kiss bricks, but the last one that went in on that wall had a very big sloppy kiss, as that was the final part of the jigsaw. All round the eaves was sealed up with expanded polystyrene. The expanded polystyrene was cut flush and white mastic was spread over the exposed material to form a nice, smooth, clean surface. A new commercial solar water heating panel was added to the roof to replace the original DIY panels which had proved the system and had been in operation for some 5 or 6 years. So now the job is done. Time for a beer. I do hope that these few slides and my brief commentary will help you if you're considering replacing a flat roof with a tiled pitch roof. Good luck.